بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله نشهد أن محمد رسول الله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Of course, we begin by praising Allah, the Most High, the Most Exalted, the Most Honorable. We testify to His oneness and His greatness, and we testify to the prophethood of His most beloved Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the man that we are every week or every other week we're working on, trying to gain some of the most important lessons and benefits and advices from his life, and trying the best way to bring his life to a relevant impact, transformation, practical role model for us in our everyday affairs and everyday things that we do. So if you guys can remember, I know I haven't seen you guys in a couple of weeks, but every week we kind of cover one part of the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and we cover the most important developmental aspect for us in our life. Last time we met, we covered really 4 main points that were really important in the life of the Prophet ﷺ when he was a young man. So we covered the youth years of the Prophet ﷺ, and the highlights of those years were really 4 incidents that we went into detail. There was a war that the Prophet ﷺ went through when he was a young person. It was called Harb al-Fujur, or the War of Transgression. We talked about how the Prophet ﷺ was teen years, he participated. It was kind of an unjust war where Thaqif, the tribe from Ta'if, attacked Quraysh in the times that they weren't supposed to attack. And the Prophet participated, and that had an impact on him, that he lived a life that saw bloodshed or war, and he experienced that as a young person. Then there was Hilf al-Fulul, or the alliance that the Prophet was a part of when he was a youngster. So this was another event where somebody was oppressed in the community. What we would know today as immigrants. An immigrant comes to Mecca. Some of the Meccans bullied him, took some of his possessions. Some of the elites of Quraysh came together. Amongst them was the Prophet ﷺ. They created this pact where they would fight anybody that in any way, shape, or form oppressed somebody, particularly people that were immigrants or people that were not from the community. And we mentioned how the Prophet said if that alliance lay much later on when he was leading in Medina, leading the Islamic State at that time, the Prophet said if I was called to that alliance today, that I would partake in it, because that is an alliance where we are ensuring the rights of people that are abused, or human rights, the greater objective of preserving and caring for people's rights in general. Then we discussed how the Prophet was a business person, and we discussed how his honesty, etc., in business, and how that was very unique. And we discussed how he was the person that helped resolve the major conflict in Mecca at the time of rebuilding the Kaaba. All 4 of those incidents, all of them in the youth years of the Prophet ﷺ, so he was between the ages of 15 and 30, relatively, 15 and 25. We highlighted the important concept of community involvement. The Prophet ﷺ, as a young person, was extremely involved in his community. He was very much focused on caring for others, helping others. He wasn't passive. He wasn't somebody that saw issues and not partake in them. He was somebody that was involved in community issues, affairs. He was a part of leadership. He was a part of community involvement. He was working in different organizations, if you will, whether it was for Hilf al-Fulul, or it was rebuilding the Kaaba, etc., that he was exposed to important circumstances at a young age where he took on the responsibility of community service. And that was extremely important. And we went into a lot of that last week, a lot of research on the importance of community service, the importance of volunteering, and how that's something, especially when you're young, it shapes who you are and gives you an understanding, perspectives, etc., etc. For today, inshallah, if there's any questions, I don't mind if you guys want to cover that. That was a lot from our last session. Today's session is, as I mentioned last time we met, is all around love and the concept of love. And really what we're going to highlight today, or what we're going to talk about, is the first marriage, and really the only marriage of the Prophet's life for most of his young years, was the marriage to Khadija radiallahu anha. That's what we're going to discuss today. So first, let me go through some important parts, some things that we discussed before. What was the trade of the Prophet? So really, essentially, from the age of 20, 25, young 20s, we're not really sure. But from that time on, what was the Prophet's age? I mean, what was his profession? Remember? Yeah.
Shepherd.
So shepherd, we mentioned, was his teen years, not his young adult years. His young adult years, his profession was, he was a business person, right, very, very. So he was a salesperson, like many, essentially the entire economic structure of Mecca was based on sale, right? Selling merchandise. They would get merchandise from where? Where would the merchandise come in from? Yemen in the winter, and so there was a trip south to Yemen in the winter, and there was a trip north to, I mean, some of you guys weren't here last time, it's okay. That's what we're going to think about. So we talked about the Ilaf al-Quraysh in the story of the surah called Ilaf, the Ilaf al-Quraysh. What was the Rihlat al-Shita'i wal-Sayf, the trip or the journey or the migration that was north to what area? Very, very good. Yes, absolutely. It was the Sham. The greater area of Sham, which today is known as modern-day Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine, of course, right? That's the greater Sham. In the summer, the caravans would go north. In the winter, the caravans would go south. Yemen, of course, was one of the largest ports in the entire world at that time. One of the most important ports in the entire world at that time. So it's a very, very valuable strategic area for Quraysh to be close to and to gain and to be able to exchange and give barter or to trade there, right? Very cool. So the Prophet was a businessman. He becomes a business person for the most successful, rich enterprise, most successful company in Mecca, which was run by who? Who's the Khadija, very, very good. So Khadija, many of the historians mention that Khadija was the richest person in Mecca at the time. So she didn't have a business. She had, you could say, she was like a Walmart, where she had so much merchandise that she was selling in different places by different people at different times. So it was almost like unanimous that Khadija was the richest person in Mecca. Interestingly enough, Khadija bint Khuwaylid was a woman, of course, but she had two marriages before the Prophet ﷺ. She had two children before the Prophet ﷺ. I believe it was two children. And she had an immense amount of wealth and power and influence in Mecca at the time. There was just to see here, there was a point where she heard about the Prophet ﷺ because of his honesty. And she brought him on to be a part of one of the leaders of one of her caravans. And she noticed that when he did this trip several times, he doubled her income, or he was able to, kind of exponentially grow her revenue stream when he led the caravan compared to others. So then she asked one of her friends about him, Nufaisa. She asked her friend to travel with him on one trip, and she knows, and she reported back to Khadija, that this man he's really abnormal. Abnormal in a good way. So he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was extremely honest, extremely caring, extremely polite. She said his manners were impeccable. She said his ethics in dealing with people was like straight to the point, very subpar. His mannerisms were also excellent as a business person. So Nufaisa, she went back to Khadija and she told her, hey, this is a very special person. It was at that time that Khadija began to get interested in the concept of potentially reaching out to Muhammad ﷺ for marriage. So that's where, these are all points, by the way, we discussed. It's not the discussion for today. We discussed this in our last session. For today's, okay, how did this happen? What happened between Khadija and Muhammad ﷺ? So Khadija radiallahu anha, she actually initiates the concept of reaching out to marriage for the Prophet ﷺ. There are a lot of references. What's the most common age that we know? How old was Khadija at the time? Everybody knows this number, right? She was 40. And how old was the Prophet ﷺ?
25.
She was 25. Actually, there's opinions that there are opinions that contradict that. So that's the most popular opinion, but there are opinions that mention that Khadija was 35 or 25. And there are opinions that mention the Prophet ﷺ was 25 or 30. So again, the ages are not very clear. I mean, this is companions and different things. And I mentioned this to you guys before. We're not really concerned about age and stuff like that. The Quran is not, and in this class, not particularly, but there's a lot of, just want you to know that there are different opinions. By the way, when we get to Aisha anha later on, everybody knows that Aisha was very young when the Prophet got married to her. There are opinions that she was much older, 18. So I think it's important for us to know that there's no birth records, there's no birth certifications, there's no, I mean, even my mom's, offside. Even my mother, she was born in a village in Palestine. She was born September 15. Her birth record says September 24th, right? So it's not like this concept it's not abnormal. That's just the reality. It was, of course, documenting things from 1400 years ago. So you guys should just know that. So Khadija was, were they close in age? We think so. We think that they were relatively close in age, but we should know that. Going back to our point. So Khadija, she asked her friend to speak to the Prophet ﷺ and to inquire about marriage. Prophet ﷺ accepts, he is interested in Khadija, and so he tells her friend, yeah, I'm interested, I will be interested. So the Prophet ﷺ goes with a couple of his uncles, and they propose, and they eventually get married to Khadija bint Khuwaylid, radiallahu anha. Of course, Khadija from that time, from let's say around the age of 25, until the age of 51, the Prophet ﷺ for almost 25, 26 years of life is married and best friends, and the most important person in his life is Khadija radiallahu anha. And we're going to emphasize on this relationship today, inshallah, a little bit. Khadija, before we talk about the relationship, let's talk about children. So did the Prophet have children with Khadija? Did the Prophet have children? Very good. How many children? Let's see who knows their stuff. Go ahead. If I ask you guys Beyonce's children's names, you guys think of Beyonce's children's names for 5 seconds? Yes. So very good. Fatima, of course, which is the most important. She's the only one that lives past the Prophet within a couple of months. She passed away about 6 months after the Prophet passed away. So Khadija, Fatima is very, very important. Very good. Who else? Ruqayya, very, very good. Zainab, very good. Not Hafsa. That's Umar's daughter. Not Safiya. Kulthum, Zainab, Ruqayya, and Fatima. 2 sons the Prophet has. Both of them passed away different times. So the first of them, Al-Qasim. The Prophet's nickname, of course, was Abu al-Qasim. So Qasim, he passed away very, very young. Both of the sons passed away very young. Who was the other son from Khadija? What was his name? No, Ibrahim was from Maryam, and he came later. Who was the second son from Khadija? It's okay if you don't know. It's not. Abdullah was from Abdullah. I believe he reached the age of 18 months and then passed away. Right? He was very, very young. So both of them were very, very young. And the Prophet ﷺ had one more son, Ibrahim. Ibrahim came from Maria, and he passed away also very young. I believe also 18 months. I might have been mistaken. I think Abdullah passed as a newborn. He was very, very young as well. So those are the 7 children of the Prophet, 6 from Khadija anha. All of them he buried with his own hands, except for Fatima. So eventually he would bury 5 of his children, 6 of his children, and his wife with his own hands. We'll talk about that difficult time later on, and obviously each child. It's important too. So today's discussion is about love. So before I move forward, what is love? Let's talk about that first. What is love? Oh my gosh, this is hard. Okay, very good, excellent, okay, very good. So putting other people's needs above your own, good. What else? Sacrifice, okay, sacrificing yourself, putting other people's needs above your own, good. What does love mean to you? Everyone should have an answer. Every single person should have an answer, will you?
I already answered this in the last class, I'm not answering it again.
No, it's a different discussion, different platform. But what is love? I mean, just what is your personal reflection, or what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of the word, defining the word love?
Attachment.
An attachment? Good. Okay.
Care.
I'm sorry?
To care about and respect.
To care and respect. Wonderful. Jazakallah khairan. Go ahead. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Think about the love. I'm sorry?
Like caring for others, like what you said.
Caring for others. Okay, very good. Selflessness, attachment, very good. Passion, excitement, friendship. So there's obviously there's many different forms of love. And I was able to talk about love the past couple of days. So there's many different forms of love. As a matter of fact, relationships are life. Our life's quality is based on the quality of our relationships. Our entire life is based on the communication and interaction we have with other people. We are the most social creature on the planet, creature of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So we were created with the compassion and love and abilities that we have in making relationships. No matter what you are, yesterday, I wish I could have done this more, but if you really define the roles that you play in life when it comes to relationships, can we very quickly go through that? What different roles do I have as a human being in life? What are my different roles in life? I am a sister or brother, a son or daughter, husband or wife, I'm a spouse.
Father,
I am a,
son.
I'm a what?
Father and son.
I'm a father or mother. I am a niece or nephew. I am a cousin. I am an uncle or aunt. I am a grandmother or grandfather. I am a neighbor.